I'm ashamed even to start this story. Not the obvious shame. Being cheated on, lied to, turned into gossip in WhatsApp groups. It's another kind. It's the shame of having clung to his excuses as if they were lifelines in a shipwreck I myself pretended not to see happening. I was just an ordinary woman, married for 8 years, splitting bills, watching Sunday shows, believing routine was a synonym for safety. I thought cheating was soap opera stuff, the kind people judge from their couch, until the day an anonymous message changed everything. And yes, there was a pregnant mistress. There was court. There was a fainting episode in front of everyone when the judge read the DNA results. There were forged documents, assets in my name ironically saving everything. But nothing hurt as much as this truth. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. I was more afraid of being alone than of being deceived. More afraid of starting over than of continuing inside a neatly arranged lie, with the smell of morning coffee and promises of a future. If you've ever held on to a lie just because you were scared of losing someone, you'll understand every line of what I'm about to tell. This is not a story of heroism. It's the story of a woman who took too long to see the obvious, who defended her husband even when she already knew he was lying, and who only left when public humiliation weighed heavier than fear. It's about shame, about how we betray ourselves before we are betrayed, about how self-love sometimes has to die on the floor of a courtroom to be reborn on the other side. And if there's one thing I learned, it's that the truth always comes out. But the heart only truly faints when it realizes it spent months believing the lie on purpose. Scene 2. The perfect life that only existed in my head. Renato and I had been together for 8 years when everything collapsed. 8 years that, to me, were synonymous with stability. It wasn't a movie romance, with dramatic declarations and trips to Europe. It was more like splitting the grocery bill, arguing about who would take out the trash, and spending an entire Sunday in pajamas watching TV shows. And honestly, that felt like happiness to me. We had such a predictable routine, it felt choreographed. He woke up first, stopped by the kitchen, turned on the coffee machine, left 2 mugs on the counter, his with a chipped rim, mine with a faded lipstick stain that wouldn't come off even with steel wool. He'd turn on the news while I finished getting ready, complain about traffic, joke about gas prices. I'd answer automatically, the way people do when they believe repetition means everything is working. Sundays were sacred. Couch, old socks, takeout from the same place, the same order, as if consistency guaranteed safety. His car key hung from the same nail by the door. His jacket was always tossed on the same chair. His cologne lingered in the hallway like a seal that said, "This is our home." And I would think, satisfied, I did it. Now it's just work, save money, maybe have a kid in a few years, buy a bigger house. Those were the scenes I mentally rehearsed when someone asked, "What's your life like?" We even had plans, vague ones, the kind you keep postponing but that make you feel the future exists. When we're more stable, we'll think about having a kid. When I get that promotion, we'll change the car. One day we'll travel abroad, babe. One day we'll do everything we dream of. What I didn't know, and this still eats me alive, is that while I was organizing that tidy domestic bubble, with everything in its place, there was already someone outside looking at it like a prize to be stolen. Someone who looked at his last name, the assets she thought were his, the stability I helped build, and thought, this could be mine. Today, when I look back, I see that the perfect life I thought I had was actually a comfortably mediocre one. Not because love was missing, at least on my side, love was abundant, but because I confused predictability with happiness. I confused lack of conflict with presence of truth. And while I lived in this illusion of safety, the truth was already knocking. I just didn't want to open the door. Scene 3. The message that lit the warning and that I pretended to delete. The beginning of the end fit into a single line of text. It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind you barely remember by the end of the week. I was at work, staring at an endless Excel spreadsheet, when my phone buzzed on the desk. I glanced at it, expecting spam, and saw unknown number, no picture, no name. Just a short, dry, brutal sentence. Ask him who he says he's the father of. I laughed immediately, not because it was funny, but because laughing was the only thing my body did before panic kicked in. You know when something scares you so much your brain treats it like a joke? That was exactly it. A nervous, uncomfortable laugh that came out crooked and died instantly. I stared at the message for a few seconds, my heartbeat speeding up without permission, trying to decide if it was serious or just another stupid prank. I thought about replying, about asking, "Who are you?" But my finger froze midair. Something inside me already knew I didn't want the answer. That night, I showed the message to Renato. I was in the kitchen washing the dinner dishes, my hands shaking slightly as I held the phone dripping with soap. He took it, read it, frowned, and let out an offended laugh, like the message itself was an absurd accusation not worth taking seriously. Babe, seriously? Some crazy person? Some prank? I don't know. Someone trying to stir drama? He pulled me into a hug, the dish towel still damp in my hand, and I felt his chest rise and fall in a rhythm that was a little too controlled. "Where did it come from?" he asked, but there was no real curiosity in his voice. It sounded more like he was managing my reaction than trying to find the truth. "It's envy, babe. Gossip. We're doing well, and people can't stand seeing others happy." He rocked me gently, as if the hug were proof of innocence. I could have asked more, could have insisted on who sent it, why, whether he suspected anyone, but the fear of being the jealous, crazy one, the insecure wife, the woman who doesn't trust her husband, spoke louder. So I did what felt right in that moment. I took a breath, forced a smile, and said, "I trust you." That night, I deleted the message, deleted the unknown number, pretended nothing had happened. But I couldn't delete it from my mind. It's funny, tragic, really, how we think deleting something solves it, as if a finger could defeat the truth, as if ignoring discomfort made it disappear instead of pushing it under the rug until it grows too big to fit there. And while I pretended to sleep that night, his body beside mine and my mind racing, part of me already knew it wasn't a prank. Already knew his hug had been too quick, too rehearsed. Already knew the way he changed the subject was too efficient. But knowing and accepting are two completely different things, and I wasn't ready to accept it yet. Scene 4. Denial dressed as normality. The following days were a play I wrote, produced, and starred in. I woke up, made coffee, sent cute texts during work. "Hi, love. Did you have lunch?" Posted pictures of a perfect couple on social media, and did all of this with a hole the size of a country in my stomach. If a friend complained about men, I jumped in with, "At least Renato isn't like that," as if saying it out loud could convince me it was true, as if publicly testifying to his goodness erased the growing suspicion spreading inside me like weeds. But cracks began appearing, small ones, almost invisible, the kind you notice only if you're paying attention, and I was paying attention to everything. He started coming home a little later. First 30 minutes, nothing major, then an hour and a half with excuses like stopped by the store, handled something with a friend, traffic was bad, and I nodded, smiling, swallowing each excuse like bitter medicine. One night, I noticed his phone password had changed. When I asked, trying to sound casual, relaxed, he didn't even blink. "Oh, it's because of the bank app, babe. Security. Too many scams these days. Gotta be careful." And I, with my heart screaming, "There's something wrong" in neon lights inside my head, smiled and said, "Of course, babe. You're right. Better be careful." I didn't want to discover anything. I just wanted that horrible feeling to go away. I wanted everything to go back to boring, predictable, safe. I wanted to wake up one day and realize the anonymous message had been a prank, that I'd overreacted, that my mind had invented a problem where none existed. I started feeling ashamed, not of what he might be doing, not yet. The shame was in suspecting, in being that kind of woman, in not being enough for him to want only me. At night, in the shower, I stared at my body like someone staring at a failed project. A stomach no longer as flat. Thighs with cellulite. Dark circles concealer couldn't hide. I compared everything, my body, my face, my age, to actresses, influencers, younger women who showed up on his feed. Today, I know cheating has nothing to do with any of that. But back then, I blamed myself even for what I didn't know for sure was happening. Blamed myself for doubting, for not being enough, for not being able to stop thinking. And while I drowned in guilt, he lived normally. Got up, had coffee, went to work, came back, had dinner, watched TV, slept, as if nothing was happening, as if I were the crazy one. Maybe what hurt most was how easily he lied, how naturally, how calmly. While I imploded inside, he was whole. While I couldn't sleep, he snored peacefully, like he had the cleanest conscience in the world. At that point, I still thought the problem was me, that I was overreacting, creating drama, that I needed to trust more, love more, be better. Only later did I understand the problem was never me. Scene 5. How it all began and how I fell in love with the wrong character. To understand why it hurt so much, you need to know how it began. Because betrayal doesn't hurt only because of what happened. It hurts because of what you thought you had and later discovered never existed. I met Renato at a barbecue hosted by mutual friends. Nothing fancy, small backyard, overcooked meat, warm beer, Spotify playlist blasting. I was going through a rough patch, stressful job, late rent, that feeling of running on a treadmill without moving. While everyone else talked loudly about trips, cars, investments, he sat with me at a plastic table, listening to me complain about life. And the most important thing, he seemed genuinely interested. Not just polite, really interested. He joked about my everyday tragedies, told me I deserved more than working so hard to earn so little, and I felt something strange, comforting. Someone actually seeing me. No emotional makeup, no strong woman persona. Just me. Tired. Real. Our first official date was at a corner diner. Nothing fancy, greasy burgers, harsh white lighting, smell of fried food. But I walked out feeling like I'd found a safe harbor. He paid without hesitation, drove me home, texted when he got back saying, "Let me know when you're home too. I can't sleep until I know you're safe." It was with this kind of line that he built the image of a responsible, present, caring man. The kind who doesn't let you face things alone. The kind you introduce to your parents and think, he's the one. One day, lying on the couch, he held my hand and said, looking straight into my eyes, "I'll never leave you alone." At the time, it sounded like a romantic promise, a vow, a certainty. Years later, that same sentence became a ghost haunting me at night. Because he didn't leave me alone. He left me accompanied by the worst version of himself. He left me sharing him with someone else. He left me alone inside the relationship. That's why, when the anonymous message arrived, I couldn't just flip a switch and doubt everything. I wasn't attached only to Renato, the man. I was attached to the character he created, the role he played in the story I wrote for my life. I had invested 8 years building the narrative of a working couple. 8 years believing we'd grow old together, have kids, buy a house, make plans. 8 years convincing myself he was still that man from our first date, the one who cared, who texted, who promised never to leave me alone. Destroying that meant admitting I had been wrong, that I had bet on the wrong horse, that I had wasted the best years of my life on someone who didn't deserve them. And that, maybe, was the root of my denial, not just fear of losing him, but fear of admitting I had lost myself first. Scene 6. The prenatal card that changed everything. The first visible crack, the one I couldn't ignore, appeared on an ordinary afternoon. The car was a mess, as usual. Renato had asked me to grab a document from the glove compartment while he carried the groceries. I opened it without thinking, expecting to find the manual, old receipts, some worthless paper. That's when a colorful, folded pamphlet fell onto my lap. On the front, the logo of a clinic, one of those trendy, modern ones with an English name and minimalist design. I opened it without thinking, assuming it was some bill, and saw, in big bold letters, prenatal card. My stomach flipped. Below it, the patient's name, a name I had never seen or heard in my life. And beneath that, in a smaller, almost discreet field, companion, Renato Azevedo. A cold wave shot from my stomach to my chest, so fast I had to brace my hand on the dashboard to avoid collapsing. For a moment, my brain tried to protect me, creating excuses at lightning speed. It must be his sisters. Maybe his cousins. He must have just helped someone out. But the name wasn't his sister's, not his cousin's. It was a complete stranger's. And he was there, officially registered as her companion, as if it were normal, routine, planned. When Renato approached the car and saw me holding the card, the microsecond he took to react was enough for me to know he already had a speech prepared. "Oh, that," he said, too quickly, too casually. "It's from a friend, Babe. She's pregnant. The guy bailed, left her alone. I just went with her to an appointment because she was nervous. You know me. I can't say no when someone needs help." The problem was, I did know him. I knew how he helped everyone, how he took on problems that weren't his, how he put everyone first. But at that moment, staring at that piece of paper, I didn't know if I still recognized the man or just the edited version he let me see. My voice came out before I could think. "If this woman starts claiming the child is yours, we'll do a DNA test. We handle this properly, with a lawyer, the right way." I said we as if it were our problem, as if I were on his side in a war I didn't even know existed. He kept insisting it was an exaggeration, that there was no need, that some people love creating drama out of nothing. But behind the rehearsed concern, I saw real fear. Fear that didn't match the friend in need story. That day, without realizing it, I helped set the stage for what would become the most humiliating and liberating moment of my life. I stuck the card in the bottom of my purse. Didn't throw it out. Didn't rip it. Kept it like someone keeping evidence they don't yet know they'll need. And that night, while he slept peacefully beside me, I held that wrinkled paper in my hand, alone in the bathroom, crying silently, feeling the first big fracture open in the floor I thought was solid. Scene 7. The night the bed became a minefield. A few days after the prenatal card. Our bed stopped being a place of rest. I became an expert in listening to silence, in sensing tension in the air, in noticing when the body next to yours is present but absent at the same time. That particular night, one I'll never forget, he lay beside me like always, but his phone stayed there, between us, on the edge of the mattress, face down. A small, shiny wall separating two continents. The hallway light leaked through the crack under the door, drawing a thin yellow line on the floor. The fan made a rhythmic noise that, instead of calming me, only marked the pace of my insomnia. I smelled it, a perfume that wasn't mine, clinging to his shirt collar, too sweet to be casual, too noticeable to be an accident. The kind of perfume you don't wear to work. You wear it to be remembered. His body was there, a few centimeters away. Warm, familiar. But every time the phone buzzed, and it buzzed, I felt an electric current running across the mattress. I thought about grabbing the phone, thought about turning to him and asking, "Who is it?" Thought about switching on the light, making a scene, demanding answers. But I froze. The fear of the answer was bigger than the pain of the doubt, because as long as I didn't know for certain, I could still pretend, still cling to my illusion, still sleep in that bed without having to decide what came next. My hands were sweating, my chest tight, my throat dry, my whole body reacting to an invisible but very real threat. Every time he moved, I held my breath. If he turned toward me, my body stiffened, as if any movement could set off an invisible mine and blow the truth open right there, on the sheets we chose together, in that bed that once felt like ours. That night, there was no affection, no pillow talk, no goodnight kiss, no sleep well, no casual touch that once came so naturally. There were two strangers lying side by side, pretending to sleep, each clinging to their own secret. His, the one I still didn't know fully, mine, the cowardly fear of finding out and having to act. I stayed awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing grow deep, heavy, peaceful, while mine stayed trapped, fast, suffocated. And for the first time, with sharp, painful clarity, I thought, I'm sharing a bed with someone I don't know anymore. When the sun began lighting the window, he woke up, stretched, kissed my forehead, an automatic, empty gesture, and went to shower as if nothing had happened. I stayed there, staring at the phone he had forgotten face down on the bed. I could have taken it, should have taken it, but I didn't. Not yet. Because at that moment, I still hoped I was wrong. And hope is sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world. Scene 8. The day the mistress knocked on the door, I thought the story would drag on slowly. That we'd have months of suspicion, back and forth, maybe fix it, maybe not. But life decided to speed up the script in a way no screenwriter could predict. It was a Saturday afternoon. Renato was in the shower. I was on the sofa in an old sweatshirt, hair tied up, pretending it was a normal day. The intercom rang. I went downstairs thinking it was food delivery or the doorman. When the door opened, I saw her. She was younger than I expected. Much younger. Perfect hair, flawless makeup even for a Saturday afternoon. Clothes chosen carefully. That kind of casual, that only looks casual because it took time to put together. And the belly, round, impossible to ignore. She held it with both hands, like someone showing off a trophy not yet officially awarded. "Are you Renato's wife?" she asked, and the smile that followed didn't reach her eyes at all. My stomach dropped, but my voice came out firm, pure survival instinct. "I am. Who are you?" She took a deep breath, like she had rehearsed that moment in the mirror many times. "My name is Carla. I'm pregnant, and the baby is his." It was as if all the energy in my body had drained at once. As if someone had flipped a switch, and I remained standing only because my body hadn't received the order to collapse yet. Her voice kept going, throwing dates, places, justifications. "He said he was going to tell you. He said he was going to handle everything, that he was going to take responsibility. I only came here because I'm tired of waiting, because my child deserves his father's name." I went upstairs with her. I don't know why. Maybe because the neighbors were already watching. Maybe because part of me needed to see his face when his two worlds collided. When Renato came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, wet hair, and saw her sitting on our couch, his expression was pure panic. For 2 seconds, he froze. Then he switched masks at impressive speed. He became the indignant one. "Are you insane?" he screamed at her, voice cracking, eyes wide. "What is this story about coming to my house and saying these crazy things in front of my wife?" She didn't flinch. Quite the opposite. She straightened up on the couch, held her belly again, that performative gesture she used as a shield, and said with eerie calm, "Crazy as you pretending this doesn't exist. I have messages, I have photos, I have prenatal appointment records with your name as companion." He started sweating, stuttering, creating new versions. "She's trying to scam me. She wants money. She came here to destroy us." And while the two of them yelled, accused, defended themselves, I stood there, still, in the middle of my own living room, listening to two people argue about a version of my husband I didn't even know existed. Then she turned to me and said, "If he doesn't acknowledge this child, I'll take it to court. I'll demand child support, paternity recognition, everything my son is entitled to." And that's when I said, with a voice that didn't sound like mine, "Then go ahead, do the DNA test. We'll handle this the right way, with lawyers, with documents, with proof." Renato looked at me like I had stabbed him in the back, but I wasn't betraying him. I was finally stopping betraying myself. And that's how, with shouting, threats, and a pregnant belly in the middle of my living room, the DNA test officially entered our lives, and my marriage officially began to die. Scene 9, alone in the middle of someone else's war. After that day, I stopped being just Renato's wife. I became the wife of the guy who might have gotten someone else pregnant. I became gossip. I became that story people tell in a low voice, with pity mixed with morbid curiosity. And it spread fast, faster than any celebrity news, because other people's tragedy always outruns other people's happiness. His family mobilized like an army in defense of Renato. My mother-in-law called me crying, swearing she knew the son she had, that he may be many things, but he's not that kind of bastard. His brother talked about scams, about gold diggers, about women who want to trap a guy for money. My friends split into two very clear groups. The ones texting nonstop, "Leave that guy now. What a humiliation. You deserve better. Get out before it gets worse." And the ones who spoke softly, worried, "Wait for the test. Don't throw away 8 years because of an accusation. What if it's a lie? What if you regret it? I stood in the middle, not knowing which side to choose, locking myself in the bathroom to answer calls, staring at my reflection as if I were a stranger. It felt strange hearing myself say things like, "He swears it's a lie. We'll do the DNA test. Everything will be fine." It might not be his, right? Each of those sentences left my mouth as if they were true, but inside I already knew. I already knew. The shame was physical. I felt it burn my face when I ran into someone at the grocery store. I felt it weighing on my shoulders when I had to tell my boss I'd need time off for personal reasons. I felt it choking me at night, imagining people talking about me in WhatsApp groups. Did you hear about her? I always thought something was off in that marriage. Poor thing, everyone knew but her. I felt like one of those movie protagonists everyone judges, everyone has an opinion about, everyone knows exactly what she should do, except her. And the worst part, the part no one talks about, is that deep down, way down in an ugly, hidden part of me, I was rooting for the DNA test to come out negative. Not out of justice, not because I believed him, but out of fear. Fear of having to make a decision. Fear of admitting I'd wasted 8 years. Fear of starting over from scratch, alone, in my 30s. Having to explain to everyone why the marriage ended. If the DNA came out negative, I could pretend. I could say, see, it was all lies. I could move on, drag the marriage forward, live inside the comfortable denial that nothing had happened. And that's when the ethical dilemma took shape inside me. Messy, heavy, contradictory. What would justice look like for me? What would justice look like for that child who might or might not be his? What would justice look like for the truth? And the scariest question of all, why was I more worried about saving the marriage than saving myself? During those days waiting for the hearing, I lived on autopilot. Woke up, worked, came home, ate dinner, slept. Renato tried to be affectionate, as if affection could erase doubt. He held my hand tightly, hugged me more than usual. Repeated, like a mantra, "You'll see, babe. Everything will be fine. I never cheated on you." And I, cowardly, let him. Let him hold my hand. Let him hug me. Let him repeat lies I wasn't brave enough to confront yet. Because at that moment, I was still afraid of one thing: the silence that would come once the truth finally screamed. Scene 10, the day in court. When the smile turned into a feint, the day of the hearing finally came. If you've never been inside a courthouse, let me tell you, it's a cold and impersonal place where every hallway echoes rushed footsteps, and every room carries the weight of lives torn apart on letterhead. The air conditioning was too cold. Or maybe I was the one shaking uncontrollably, not knowing if it was from the temperature or panic. The sounds were a strange mix: heels tapping on marble, doors slamming shut, low conversations filled with legal terms I didn't understand. It all felt like a movie set, except this time I was the main character. Renato walked beside me in a shirt and crooked tie. That crooked tie irritated me more than it should have. He tried to look like the victim of some great injustice, the family man attacked by a schemer. Sometimes he squeezed my hand so hard it hurt, like he needed to make sure I was still there, still playing the faithful wife who believes till the end. When his name was called, we entered the room. She was already there. Carla, the mistress, the pregnant one, the other woman. She sat beside her lawyer, dressed carefully. Nothing flashy, but everything calculated to send the right message. Young, fragile, pregnant, a victim. Her belly highlighted as always, held with both hands as if it were an irrefutable argument. When she saw me, she smiled. And that smile, God, that smile, wasn't apologetic or embarrassed. It was the smile of someone who already knows they've won. Someone just waiting for official confirmation. Someone who looks at you and thinks, "You're just a temporary obstacle." The judge walked in. Everyone stood. The silence was so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat pounding, loud and out of rhythm, like it had stepped out of my chest and was echoing through the whole room. He said a few formal things: procedures, protocols, terms that went in one ear and out the other. My mind was focused on one thing: the envelope on the table, the white, sealed envelope with the DNA result. That thin piece of paper was going to decide everything, whether I stayed married or not, whether he was a father or not, whether my suspicions were right, or if I was just a paranoid woman who destroyed her marriage for nothing. The judge picked up the envelope, opened it slowly. Read it silently first. Time seemed to stop. Every second stretched like gum, sticky, endless. I looked at Renato. He was pale, sweating. I looked at Carla, that confident, almost arrogant smile still there. And then the judge said, in a clear, official voice, "Result, not compatible with the alleged father, Renato Azevedo." It felt like a bomb exploding in slow motion. Her smile died first, froze on her face for a split second before collapsing entirely. Her eyes widened, the color drained, the hands holding her belly started shaking. She tried to hold on to the table, but her legs didn't obey. And then, right there in the middle of the hearing room, in front of the judge, the lawyers, me, and Renato, she fell. The sound of her hitting the floor was sharp, frightening. For a moment, I thought she was acting. Another dramatic stunt for attention. But the way her head hit, the way her body went limp, the shock on everyone's face, it wasn't acting. Staff rushed over. Someone asked for water. Someone else called for medical help. And in the middle of all that chaos, the judge continued, cold, almost robotic. Additionally, document alterations were found in materials submitted by the petitioner. There is evidence of attempted fraud to obtain paternity recognition for financial gain. Carla hadn't just lied about the baby. She had forged documents, tried to force paternity to take a share of assets she thought were Renato's. Assets that, ironically, and this was the twist that flipped everything upside down, were almost all in my name. A financial plan we made years ago to protect the family, which, in the most ironic way possible, was now protecting me from him. Renato started crying. I don't know if it was relief, fear, or because he realized that at that moment, in front of everyone, he had officially become the victim of a scam. The perfect narrative. The wronged man. The innocent one. He grabbed my hand, kissed my fingers, repeated between sobs, "See, babe, I told you. I always told you. I never cheated. It was all her lies." On the outside, I was sitting there, stiff, trying to process. Inside, something started shifting, like a tectonic plate moving slowly, inevitably, causing an earthquake. Because while everyone celebrated the DNA result, while his family sighed in relief, while he cried his innocence, my phone buzzed in my pocket, and that vibration changed everything. Scene 11, innocent on paper, guilty on my screen. The hearing ended in a strange, almost celebratory atmosphere on his family's side, but I stayed seated, holding the phone that had buzzed seconds before, while everyone congratulated each other as if we had just won a battle. It was just a silly notification. One of those automatic cloud sync alerts we ignore every day. But that little icon on the corner of the screen was the trigger I needed to see what was missing. Months earlier, Renato's phone had been set to automatically back up to a shared account, one of those technical oversights you make without thinking. And by some miracle or curse, depending how you see it, that account was still logged in on my phone. Right there, while he talked to the lawyer, thanked the judge, hugged relatives who came to support him, I opened the app, scrolled through folders, through names, random files, old photos, nothing much, until I found a folder with a name too generic not to be suspicious. Documents 2. I clicked. There were no documents. There were screenshots of conversations, photos, voice messages I didn't have the courage to listen to right there, but I already knew what they were. The dates matched the nights of work meetings, the helping a friend, the "don't wait up, I'll be late." I read the messages and with each line felt a mix of nausea and brutal clarity. You know, I can't stand hiding like this anymore. She's a good person, she doesn't deserve this. But life is complicated, you know? We don't choose who we fall in love with. One day I'll tell her. I just need the right moment. I don't want to hurt her. There was a picture of them at a restaurant he never took me to. A selfie in a cheap hotel room. Him with his arm around her, smiling the way I thought he only smiled for me. The caption on the last photo said, "One day this will be our routine. In that second, everything became crystal clear. The mistress had lied about the baby, invented that he was the father, forged documents to get money. All of that was true. But he had lied about everything before that. He'd had an affair, met up with her, made promises, lived a parallel life while I paid bills, cooked meals, washed clothes, believed in us. On paper, in that courtroom, Renato had just been declared innocent. On my screen, he was condemning himself line by line. Sitting on that hard bench, with people celebrating around me, I realized there were two truths that day. The legal truth, cold, based on DNA. The child isn't his. And the intimate truth, burning in my hand holding that phone. He cheated. He lied. He used your trust as a shield while living another life. The judge could absolve Renato as a father, but only I could decide his verdict as a husband. And right there, looking at those messages, those photos, that hidden life he carried so naturally, I made the hardest yet most obvious decision. I was leaving. Scene 12, the hallway between two lives. We left the courtroom in a victory mood, at least for them. Outside, his family waited like we were coming out of a life-or-death surgery that had gone well. Tight hugs, back pats, scripted lines, thank God. Truth always wins. I knew you were innocent. I watched everything in slow motion, like I was watching a movie in a language I no longer understood. Renato made sure to repeat the narrative. I almost lost everything because of an evil woman. They tried to destroy me. But the truth won. He framed himself as the hero of a story about overcoming injustice, and everyone bought it. Everyone believed it. People looked at me expecting the usual role. The faithful wife who embraces her husband, says, "I always believed you," celebrates with him. Except something in me had broken differently this time. It hadn't snapped back. It hadn't glued itself together with habit. While everyone celebrated the negative DNA, all I could think about were the positive messages he'd sent her. The proof only I had seen. The truth only I carried. When we finally stood alone in the hallway, he walked toward me, teary-eyed, arms open, ready to wrap me in the hug that once comforted me and now only suffocated me. I stepped back. He stopped, confused, tried to laugh, like I was just nervous, in shock. "Calm down, babe. It's over. Everything worked out. You saw, right? I never cheated. She made everything up." I looked straight into his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't try to convince myself of anything. Didn't look for excuses, didn't search for the good version of the story. I grabbed my phone, opened one of the conversations, turned the screen toward him. "You want to try that sentence again?" I asked, my voice low, calm, dangerous. His face collapsed, color drained. His eyes blinked fast, desperate, looking for an exit. Some version of the facts he hadn't used yet. "It's not what it looks like," he started, a voice cracking. "It's not what it looks like," I repeated. And for the first time, I felt real anger. Not sadness, not disappointment. Anger. "So explain it. Explain how it's not what it looks like when you have pictures with her. Messages. Promises. Explain how you looked me in the eye every day and lied." He tried to grab my hand. I pulled away. "I can explain. I can—" "No." I cut him off, and the firmness in my voice scared even me. "You don't need to. I don't want to hear any more." I walked past him in the hallway. Each step was a break. Each step, a goodbye. Not to the entire 8 years. There were good parts at the start. I know there were. But a goodbye to the version of me who accepted crumbs and called it love. I crossed the parking lot with shaky legs, my heels hitting the floor, each sound echoing like a tiny earthquake, pulling memories up. I thought of the first time he said he loved me. Of that simple barbecue where it all started. Of the nights I felt safe just hearing his key turn in the lock. I got in the car. Closed the door. Silence. Opened the glove compartment. The prenatal card was still there. Wrinkled. Forgotten. The first proof that I'd chosen to believe the lie instead of trusting my gut. I held that paper. Felt its weight. The weight of all the times I'd ignored the obvious because I was afraid of being alone. And I realized that parking lot was my turning point. Either I kept choosing the comfortable lie, or I faced the uncomfortable truth and rebuilt from scratch. That day, for the first time, I chose the second option. I turned on the engine and left. Scene 13. The lie I wanted to love and the restart no one sees. Today, as I tell this story, I'm not in that courtroom anymore. I'm not in that apartment. Not in that bed that became a minefield. I'm somewhere else, with different walls, different furniture, a different key in my purse. But the final scene, for me, will always be the same. I got home that day, alone. The house felt smaller, like the walls had shrunk, suffocated by the shame I carried. I went into the bedroom, took off my wedding ring slowly, felt the cold metal on my skin, the weight of a broken promise I had carried on my finger all those days, even knowing it meant nothing. I placed the ring on top of the prenatal card I'd brought with me. 2 symbols, 2 lies, 2 pieces of the same story, the promise and the proof of its break. I stared at them for a few seconds. I could have made a dramatic scene, could have screamed, cried, smashed things, could have posted a long rant online exposing everything, could have called his family and thrown the truth in their faces, but I did none of that. I grabbed the ring and the card in one hand, walked to the kitchen, and threw them in the trash. No speech, no soundtrack, no dramatic pause, just the dry sound of metal hitting plastic and paper crumpling with it. Then I sat on the couch, that same lazy Sunday couch of TV shows and takeout, and grabbed my phone. I started deleting the photos with Renato, one by one, on the beach, at family birthdays, at the movies, at that simple diner where I once thought I'd found the love of my life. Every swipe upward felt like taking an invisible weight off my back, like putting down a load I didn't realize I'd been carrying. I expected to feel longing, or anger, or the urge to go back and do things differently. But the strongest feeling was relief. Relief from finally stopping pretending, from stopping betraying myself just to keep someone beside me, from stopping believing in pretty versions of the truth. In the last photo, before deleting, I stared at my own face. I was laughing, hugging him, looking at the camera like someone who believes she knows how the story ends, like someone sure she's living her happily ever after. And I thought, with this sad tenderness for that old version of me, you had no idea. I deleted it. Quietly whispered to myself, the truth always shows up, but the heart only truly faints when it realizes it believed the lie on purpose. That day, it wasn't just the mistress who collapsed on the courtroom floor. It was also the perfect image I had of my marriage, the version of me that accepted any excuse to avoid being alone, the illusion that love is about enduring. And you know what else? The restart didn't come with fireworks, didn't come with a new love, didn't come with a new country, a dramatic haircut, or a 10-day self-discovery trip. It came with small, almost invisible things, learning to sleep in an empty bed without missing the wrong person, choosing a coffee just for myself, making plans that don't depend on a we, looking in the mirror and not blaming myself anymore. If you've made it this far, maybe you're going through something similar, or you already did, or you know someone who is. Maybe you're also holding on to a lie with both hands, too scared to let go because you don't know what comes next. I don't have a ready-made advice, no magic formula. I won't say everything's going to be okay because sometimes it's not. Sometimes things collapse, and you have to rebuild from zero, brick by brick, day by day. But there's one thing this story taught me, and that's what I want to tell you. You don't control who lies to you, but you control how long you stay silent in the face of discomfort. That intuition you call exaggeration, that little voice you choke down because you're scared of being the crazy one, that knot in your stomach you ignore because it's easier to believe the excuse. That might be the only part of you that hasn't been trained to believe anyone's narrative, the only part still protecting you. One day, someone might summarize this story with a sensational headline. Pregnant woman faints in court, mistress smiles until judge reads DNA test. And they'll think the climax is the fainting. But for me, the real moment was far less cinematic. It was the quiet click of deleting the last photo, throwing the ring in the trash without ceremony, walking out of that parking lot alone, shaking but walking, choosing to stop betraying myself just to keep someone beside me. That's where the soap opera ends for the audience? But that's exactly where my real life started.